Yo, what is good, everybody? Dusty4Kicks here. Welcome back to the channel. So I already did one real versus fake on the Travis Scott Fragment Jordan 1 lows. It seemed to do pretty well. So I thought maybe I'd do probably a couple more. I got one size 12, again, my size, coming my way. And the one that I'm gonna do today is a size 7.5. Of course, versus the retail size that I have, which is a 10. Just to kind of show you guys what's out there as far as batches and different stuff like that to look for. Now, this is pretty much going to be the same thing as the last video as far as comparison, but this time I'm also going to do a black light test, which is something I've never done before, so that's going to be interesting. So let's just go ahead and get straight into it. Travis Scott Fragment Jordan 1 low. Alright guys, so the size 10 retail straight from the sneakers app, size 7.5 replica. That one is going to be from Jack Sneakers. Now I'm going to go ahead and put his information right here on the screen so you can check him out. Now I've already looked at the boxes both extensively, and pretty much the only difference that I was able to pick out side by side is the difference in the color blue. Now if you look right here, the blue is much lighter on the rep pair than on the retail. The retail is a much darker blue, and having them side by side, especially right here on this line where it lines up, you can see there is a pretty substantial color difference side by side. But if you didn't have the retail lined up right here on the replica, I'm gonna say it probably is pretty hard for you to tell. All right, so we're gonna start with the left shoe. Bottom pair being the size 10 retail, top pair being the size 7.5 replica. Now right off the bat, you can see color difference, there isn't really much to be talked about. The blues are the exact same shade. I don't see any difference even looking side by side. Sail swooshes, I will say the replica pair looks maybe slightly darker, but nothing anybody could really pick out. Same goes for midsole color, maybe slightly darker. I will say that obviously you can see the texture in the retail is a little more there than the texture as far as the replica pair. I think it also has to do with lighting and that slight shade difference, but that is something you can kind of look at to see when you're legit checking. But like I said, as far as color difference, there isn't much. You can see the blacks on the lace guard and around the toe box match up, as well as the white side panels. Now you can see the stitching right here above the reverse swoosh. Sometimes it will be more straight like this pair, and sometimes it will be more curved like this pair. Looking at plenty of retail and having retail in hand, I've seen that there is a little bit of variance there, so that's not something you can really check out. All right, now coming over to the toe box, there's nothing too crazy, it's just regular white leather. Something I will point out are the laces. Now on retail, they're waxed and they have a little bit of the shine to them, the sheen. As far as the replica ones, same as the other pair that I got before, it's not there. It's kind of like a wax kind, but not that same shine or sheen to it. So side by side, you can definitely pick that out if you look close enough. I know a lot of the old replica pairs, the tongue color right here was off. This is not the case with this pair. You can see it's pretty much the exact same color. I don't really spot a difference there. Moving up to the tongue tag, I will say this one on retail looks slightly darker as far as the blue for the Nike swoosh in the air and the actual tongue tag itself. If you look really close, you can see that. Again, if it's not side by side, it is kind of hard to check out. Checking out the tags on the side of the tongue, you can see it's this Fragment design and it's pretty much the same font, boldness, color, everything. That's pretty much spot on. Moving to laces, you still got the same kind on both. You got the blue, the pink, and then you also got the black. But again, if you look real closely, you can see that the retail one right here on the right is a little more shiny and waxed than the one on the replica pair. Again, without having it side by side, it is hard to tell, but in person, it is a little more obvious. Looking at the insoles and the sock liner, you can see that it's the same blue. There's no shade difference or anything like that. Color, pretty spot on. As far as Nike, the Air and Swoosh, it's stamped on there on the insole in black. A little bit of a shine to both of them if you're on the light over. I will say the retail pair looks like it has a little more shine to it, kind of just like the laces. Sizing could also be a little smaller right here on the retail as opposed to the rep, but again, it is a big size difference as far as the shoes go, so that could always be attributed to that. Come over to the back side. They do seem to be the same height, which is usually a big difference with reps. And this part right here actually seems to be the same length as well, which is also a big difference and pretty good in my opinion. As far as sicko mode face, again, size difference and retail does vary a little bit, but the one on the rep right here looks a tiny bit smaller than the one on retail. As you can see that the spacing right here is bigger, but again, that's because of the size. The rep does seem to be a little glossier. It's kind of hard to get on camera, but it is more glossier than the retail. So that's something you can kind of check out and look for when legit checking. Okay, coming over to the medial side, you can see the swoosh on the replica pair a little more tumbled than the one on the retail pair. Now, of course, leather varies, so that's not something you can really use when legit checking. You can see the Cactus Jack logo right here on the replica pair is pretty difficult to see. It's the 3M font, obviously, but you can see on retail, also 3M, it is easier to spot out. So something hard to really see on foot for sure, but if you have them side by side, it is something you can kind of use when legit checking. Now, a lot of the rep pairs, as far as the tooling code font right here, don't get it as thick. You can see it's more bold and thick right there on retail, as opposed to the replica pair. And this was the same flaw with my other replica pair that I did before. Now, of course, on foot, and unless you have side by side, it is hard to see since it's such a tiny little font and text at the bottom of your foot. But when side by side, like I said, legit checking, easy to help. Outsole of the shoe, you can see up close, the texture is pretty solid between retail and rep. Same for the Nike hit right there on the center. And even the shade of blue is pretty damn close, I'd have to say. I can't even really see a difference side by side. All right, now checking out the right shoe, like I said on the other one, you can see the stitching as opposed to the left shoe was more straight, but obviously you can see this one is more curved. And I'd like to point out that the stitching didn't actually hit the reverse swoosh on the other shoe, but this one, it does connect. You can see on the rep pair, it's a little straighter than the other replica pair, but it still curves just a bit. Again, the color and everything is pretty similar as far as the sale color and everything. Maybe slightly darker on the rep than the retail, but nothing too crazy. Reverse swooshes both have pretty much the same amount of tumbling, maybe a little more on retail, but again, that's something that varies and not something you can really use to legit check. Toe boxes again, retail rep, just regular white. Like I said, you can use the laces right here with that more shine wax to it than on the replica pair to kind of legit check that part. Tongue color doesn't really change between rep and retail, just like the other pair, but if we come over to the tongue tag at the top, Nike Air and the swoosh, a little bit darker on the retail pair than on the rep. Even the tag itself is tiny bit shade darker of blue. Looking at the side tongue tags on these, instead of Fragment design, it says Cactus Jack. Now I want to say the retail this one, the font is a slight shade darker of red than on the rep one. Again, unless having them side by side, that is kind of hard to see, but once you have them in person, you can use that to legit check. Insoles again, as well as the sock liner, no shade difference that I can really see side by side, so not really anything you can use. Both pretty glossy or shiny, you can say, between the rep and the retail on this pair. I want to say that we said the retail pair was a little more shiny as far as the graphic for Nike and the Air and the swoosh on the insole, as opposed to the rep one. But this one, it's not too much of a clear difference. Backside of this pair, the heel caps look pretty much the same size, as well as the shoes being the same height, which on retails and reps is a little bit of a variation usually. You can even see close on the retail, there is a little bit of a widow's peak, as well as on the rep pair. Now I want to say the logo is actually a lot better in size on this one, maybe slightly smaller again on the rep than the retail. But again, like I said, that could be contributed to the fact that it is a smaller size. But embroidery and everything looks pretty solid. Medial side of this shoe, again, everything pretty much matches up. The blues, the blacks, the whites, all the same color. If you look at the Cactus Jack right here on the retail, it is easier to see than the Cactus Jack font and logo on the rep. Again, unless side by side, it is hard to see. In plain daylight, it is pretty much invisible to the naked eye. That's why it's 3M. If you look at the midsole color, again, rep being maybe slightly darker, but again, unless side by side to retail, kind of hard to see that yourself. I will also see right here, again, the font for the tooling code on the retail is a little bolder than the one on the rep. Again, unless side by side, it is hard to see because it's the bottom part of the shoe and it's a tiny, tiny little font. All right, so first looking at the retail with the black light, you don't really see anything too crazy. You see a little bit of stitch lines, but nothing crazy on this side. Toe box, also nothing too crazy. Little bit of stitch marks right there, but again, other than like the white text and the tongue tag, nothing's lighting up too crazy at all. A little bit of holes and stitch over there on that side. Medial side, you don't really see any marks here either. Kind of just normal, just for like the stitch marks and stuff like that, but you don't see any guidelines or anything like that that a lot of people freak out about when it comes to reps. Inside of the shoe, again, you can see that other than the tongue tag, nothing lights up too much. Size tag lights up a little bit, but nothing too crazy that you can really spot. Checking out the replica pair with the light, there's nothing too crazy. A little bit of guidelines there, maybe a little bit up there, but nothing too crazy as far as anything else. Then when we come down the midsole, a lot of times you see really, really bad marks here. For this one, you can see there's an obvious, probably a stamp right there. Nothing too crazy, you can clean it off, blah, 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 but something to definitely check out with your blacklight. I've seen pairs where it's really, really bad. Even for Nike QC, it's pretty bad on a lot of the replica pairs right here on the midsole. Top of the shoe, nothing too crazy. A little bit of stitch marks, just like the retail pair we saw. White tag lights up and stuff like that. Medial side, again, nothing too crazy. No crazy marks or stamps on this side that I can see. Same goes for the back. I don't really see anything to really pick out there. On the inside, something that does differ a little bit, you can see more marks right there on the lateral side, but on the inside, medial side also, it does light up just a little bit more. You can see that on the retail, you didn't have the swoosh line there, but on this one, you do have that. So that's something you can kind of use to legit check with your blacklight, that it does have more markings and more stitch marks that you can see. Right retail shoe, again, you don't see anything too crazy. No crazy marks or anything. I think there's a little bit of glue right there. You can kind of see it without the actual blacklight kind of shining there, but nothing too crazy whatsoever as far as guidelines and crazy stuff like that. I don't see it anywhere. Again, you can kind of see the stitch marks and the tongue tag light up, but nothing else. No guidelines or anything on this side. No marks on the midsole. Inside of this one, again, you can see that you can't really see all the lit up stitch marks on this one. Maybe a little bit right here on the side, but nothing too crazy like the replica pair is having so far. Checking out the right shoe of the replica pair, you can see there are little tiny marks. It's kind of hard to get on camera. Here and there, just little tiny glue marks, even right there where the leather is cut at the very bottom where it meets the midsole. I don't see any really guidelines or anything like that as far as for the reverse swoosh. Nothing too crazy here. Again, just where the tongue is stitched and stuff like that. I don't see anything too crazy on this side either. Again, just kind of glue marks and stuff like that, but nothing super, super crazy. A few more dots back there. But overall, nothing super crazy like I would usually be expecting on a lot of the worst pairs. Inside of this one, again, you can see everything pretty much lights up like the 4th of July. The reverse swoosh stitching right there. And then on the inside, this one even lights up pretty badly as well. Now that you've already viewed the video, you can see that there are a few minor differences between these and my retail pair. These are pretty solid. As long as you're not trying to sell reps as retail, you shouldn't have any problem wearing these with confidence. I know that's a big saying and kind of stupid saying here in the rep community, but in reality, it's very true. Little people really know how to legit check. You really have to have them side by side to know all these minor little tiny differences. And in my opinion, like I said, these are a solid choice. What about you guys? Are you gonna be rocking these? Are you gonna be cashing out some money for a retail pair, completely up to you guys. Whatever you want to do, I support your decision. Just like always, guys, I really appreciate you coming over to the channel, hanging out for a bit. Until next time, I'm Dusty4Kicks. Peace.